a lot of our customers stopped paying us and filed different types of bankruptcy chapters to not pay us. Talking about big, large companies from Bed Bath & Beyond to Linens and things. Even Starbucks at some point didn't pay us. And at the same time, I just met my wife and we got engaged, we got married, just had a baby in the way. So I'm locked in now into real estate sales, and I end up building a business that went from 0 sales to $350 million in sales within 4 years.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Today's guest, Jay Bourgana, is a Gobundance member out in the beautiful state of Hawaii. He's even wearing the shirt to display it. He's been around Gobundance for a while. We're going to dive deep on him and his story. Jay, welcome, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Of course. What is it like? It's 3:00 by me right now. So it's like what, like yesterday by you?
Yeah, it's 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
over here. So just getting started.
Just getting started. All
Still
right.
haven't gotten done my swim yet.
Yeah. I got up extra early this morning, went to the gym. It was like 5 a.m. That's earlier than normal for me.
Nice.
And then my kid and I like to jump in the pool first thing. It's like, it was 98 degrees at 8 a.m. here in the Dominican.
Wow.
Insane.
Wow.
Insane. It's too hot. But
Well, I think the good thing we have here is that it doesn't get more than probably like 85, 86. And then we have the trade winds, which keeps it really nice and, comfortable. I noticed this, I was in Miami a couple months ago, and I noticed that the temperature and the humidity was exactly the same, but it just felt harder over there than it did over here. And I figured the trade winds is what makes it nicer and gentler.
that's why you guys made the move out there. Now, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Morocco.
Okay. How'd you get to Hawaii?
I lived in SoCal for a while, and so I moved from Hawaii. I moved to Hawaii from Orange County early 2020, and it was just when everybody shut down and California shut down and all the restaurants were shut down. We figured I looked into what happened in the past and the Spanish flu, and I saw that it took about 2 to 3 years for them to get out of there. And I said, if I'm going to have no restaurants for a couple of years, might as well have the beach.
Is that right? So that was the duration after the Spanish flu? It was like 3 years before things
Yes.
sort of returned to normal?
Yep.
Interesting.
Exactly. It took them about 3 years, to exit out of that whole, pandemic.
Are you going back then?
No, I am going back to the mainland,
Oh,
but I'm not going back to California. I'm thinking about going to Florida, actually.
nice. California politics,
Yeah.
taxes, all the stuff, all the reasons people aren't going to California.
Yeah, taxes and then growth. I've never been somewhere that's growing fast. I missed the boat on Texas, and I wanted to catch it in Florida. And I want to be. I never lived on the East Coast, and I want to be closer on the East Coast. Visit the Caribbean, be able to fly to Europe in 7 hours, like everybody else does, and so it'll be fun. So it'll be a change.
Now, talk about Morocco. When did you immigrate from Morocco? What age were you? What's that story?
2002. So I was about 23, 24, 24.
How did that all go down? What would you take a job, college? Like what was the
No. I grew up in Morocco. I did a little school. I worked for a bank there. I worked at a French bank, and I worked for them in Morocco, and I worked for them in Europe. And I looked around. I have this quote that I've always lived by, is that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. So I can tell the opportunity is not available as much in Morocco, and in late 90s, Europe wasn't in a good condition back then, and I looked at the U.S. as the place where the opportunity was, and so I landed in SoCal in 2002, and just been grinding.
How did you? I just don't know this world enough. How did you get a visa, work visa? How did you come? Like, what was that process like?
Well, I've been trying to get a visitor visa for a long time, so it took about like 7, 8 attempts to get it, but eventually did. And I just showed up here, find work, and find myself an opportunity to get my documentations, and eventually became a citizen.
Were you on your own at that point? Single? Were you married? Anything like that?
Yeah, I was single, and then I got married.
Once you got to the U.S., you got married.
Yeah,
You and Mo
correct.
Shamil talk all the time? He's the other Moroccan I know
Yeah,
in the tribe.
yes, yeah. Mo and Mehdi and Hisham. We're like four guys in
I
GoBundance.
know Mehdi. I don't know who was
We
the
have a
other one?
really nice. Mehdi is in Miami, and then Hisham is in New York.
Oh, is that how you say it? I just talked to
Yeah,
him. That's hilarious. I literally talked to him yesterday. I was calling him by the wrong. I think I was calling him Hikam. So Hisham.
yes, everybody does. Yeah,
He's
he
so
come
polite.
and Hitcham and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, great guy.
Oh, I love it. All right. So you're in LA, you're in California, or Southern California, I should say. Give me the progression. What happened then? Because you're obviously now you have the location flexibility to be in Hawaii or Florida. So what are you doing now, and where did that start?
Yeah, so I started out in, because I came with a financial background, I wanted to, maybe take that experience with me, and I worked for American Funds, a mutual fund in SoCal for a year. I didn't really like how impersonal the environment, the financial system is here was, and I decided to just completely switch careers and go into manufacturing. So I pretty much left that world and worked for a manufacturing company that designed and produced home decor, food product, health and beauty product, gifts, all kinds of stuff for retailers, Walmart, Target, you name it. And I worked for them for a couple of years in Southern California on the operations side and supply chain side. And then I went to China for a couple of weeks on a project, and I ended up staying there for 4.5 years. And I essentially turned around a facility that was like a million square feet facility with 3,400 people that actually worked there, lived there, ate there. So I was running literally five, six factories in one, plus dormitories, plus kitchens, plus. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that process. It was a lot of fun dealing with suppliers all over China, traveling, seeing things. So, and 2007, 2008 happened, and a lot of our customers stopped paying us and filed different types of bankruptcy chapters to not pay us. And when we're talking about big, large companies from Bed Bath and Beyond to Linens and things, even Starbucks at some point didn't pay us. And then Bank of America was going through its own issues. They stopped our line of credit. We had $100 million line of credit with them, and we're a company of $980 million company that sold, and that went out of business within pretty much 90 days from that line of credits when going away. And I was the last guy to sell the racks in the warehouse. And yeah, so it was very it was tough, and I kind of really taught me a lot because I thought that I by doing good work, by solving problems, by being a hard worker, a hard learner, by being someone who provides solutions to a company, you still don't have control over your destiny. Your world can still fall from under you at any second. You don't control your environment. So I decided that I'm going to go. Essentially, I made that transition from an employee to essentially self-employed, and I went into becoming a consultant. So a lot of the guys that work with me went to different companies and ran different manufacturing, different supply chain operations. And after 2008, pretty much every company became a turnaround because all the problems that you had before, now they become visible when the volume and the sales come down and the issues pop and the environment changes. So, uh, uh, when the wind changes or when the environment changes, who's swimming
Yeah,
naked.
yeah,
So,
yeah. When the tide
and
goes out,
yeah,
right? When the
so
tide goes out.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I end up getting a lot of calls on turnaround projects, and I've done them all over the United States. I've done them all over the world, actually, Canada, Israel, Europe, South America, everywhere, in any facility in any type of industry, whether it is meat packing, plastic injection, pharmaceutical, whatever. They would have an issue, and so I did that for about 5 years, and I was just pretty much traveling 100% of the time. So for that period that I was in China and the period that I was doing that, I was pretty much 100% living in hotels. And I kind of got tired of that, and I said, okay, let me take a year off and just maybe look at my next transition, my next iteration. And I connected with friends in SoCal, and they all kept, I told them that I was looking for a place to rent, ideally close to the beach. And they all said, well, why rent? You could buy. This is a good time to buy. And real estate is a good hedge for inflation. And this was the conversation back in 2011 and 2012. And so I bought a property, and I bought two, and I saw value go up as people were flipping houses and adding value. And I got curious around real estate, but there wasn't a lot of education at the time. Like 2011, there was no, podcast or communities around real estate investing. And or at least I didn't know they existed at the time. So I decided to go and get my real estate license to learn about real estate investing, and I got sucked into real estate sales, and I didn't make the connection that they're two different things. And at the same time, I just met my wife, and we got engaged, we got married, just had a baby in the way. So I'm locked in now into real estate sales, and I end up building a business that went from zero sales to $350 million in sales within 4 years. And I had a large regional independent broker came by, and said, "Hey, we're growing through acquisition. Let us, acquire you and come on board and help us grow this thing." And so I did that. I sold 70% of my company. I came on board. We doubled in size year one. We doubled again the following year. I had a 3-year contract with them. I stayed there for about 3.5 years, and then sold the rest of my shares, and converted my proceeds into commercial real estate, as well as some Airbnbs and residential. And that was kind of like, around the same time when I joined Gobundance around 2018. And I kind of learned more about real estate, diversification and different assets. And then so 2000, like halfway through that period, COVID hit. So we decided, okay, well, if we're going to be shut down, let's be shut down somewhere nice. And we came here to Hawaii, and we've been here since.
Love it, man. Go back a minute on the consulting gig. When you left and took a year off, had you just made like a shit ton of money and lived off of it, or did you have passive investments at that point? I don't think you did.
No, yeah, I just had, a lot of savings, and yeah. Yeah, I was working, most of the time, and all my expenses were paid by the companies that I was working for. So I really had no expenses for like 10 years.
I think about that a lot. Like I think all of us go, 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 go. And when we have an opportunity to take a moment, it doesn't feel like you should. I did that. I quit my job and I went right to work. Right. I regret that in some ways. I should have taken 3 months or whatever. But this scarcity kind of kicks in of, well, if I don't, then I'm going to miss out on this, or I'm going to put myself in financial peril. But you took that year off. I don't know. Talk about that for a minute. Is that something you recommend to people? Is that just like, hey, go through like what was it you got from that time?
Yeah, I just spent a lot of time traveling. I went to Europe, and I went to Morocco for a couple months, and I went to Europe, and I traveled around, everywhere. I was just moving. I literally, all I did was just kept moving, and kept just getting taking flights, and getting buses, and taking tours, and meeting people. And it was very eye opening, because you see it takes you out of your box, and it puts you in different, and it gives you different perspectives, and you start seeing the world from a different angle, and you get a lot of ideas. And I spent a lot of time, and whenever I was here, I was spending most of my time at Borders bookstore. If you remember them, they were around. I was spending most of my time at the bookstore. I would literally just grab a coffee and find a couch and grab a book and read all day. And so that's pretty much what I did. I just traveled and read books. And I highly recommend that for people to kind of just gather their thoughts, reframe everything, spend some time thinking about what just happened the last 10, 15 years, and then why it happened the way it happened. How would you do it differently? And what did you like about what you did, and what you didn't like about what you did? And if you have to redesign your life in the next 5 years, what parts would you bring with you? What parts would you keep in the past? I think it's amazing. It's an amazing experience. And I did that like right now. The last 3 years, I kind of semi-retired, or pretty much retired. And that's all I've been doing, is just thinking about, what worked in the past, what I loved, what I was passionate about, and what I want to bring with me in the future. and what are the things that I want to keep in the past.
What did you discover from this? I was going to ask you what your day to day looks like now, but you just sort of answered it, right? So you've taken a little bit of a break. So
Yeah,
what have you learned? What have you discovered? What's it look like?
I learned that I like to be productive. I don't like to be sitting by the beach drinking margaritas all
Yeah.
day. So as much fun as it is, I like to be productive. I like to add value to the world. I love being connected to people, smart people who are doing things. So I love the connection, and I love developing people. I love like the people development, leading people, helping, seeing the transformation in my team. I love solving my clients' problems and helping them grow and helping them develop. So I love the problem solving piece, and I love the people piece, and I love staying in learning, growing, having something and also I found this by myself is that I'm not super um, uh, intern almost like I find accountability on the outside, not inside. So I have a hard time holding myself accountable, but I do really well when I have the environment giving me accountability. When I have to do something, when the environment is forcing me to do something, that I will do it. If left to my own, I'll just be sitting on the beach reading books all day.
What structures are in place for you to, you're your own guy, right? You're your own business owner. So what do you leverage? How do you create accountability when you own your own business?
It's a tough thing. So I have to constantly, essentially, meditate on it every day. And I mean, think about, like, for me, my kids are like, when I spend an hour and a half with my kids every morning, and every morning, that's, so we just sit and talk. My kids are homeschooled, and essentially they are my accountability because I want to be an example for them. I want to be someone who's productive, who's learning, who's growing, who's developing constantly. I want them to see me, and we talk about my stuff. I mean, we talk about what I'm working on, what I'm doing, and essentially they're my accountability partners, if you will.
Yeah. No, you
And so
found.
that kind of helps me during my
Yeah,
day.
yeah, you find purpose in that. I say it when I left my job, one of the things I remember saying to my son, my older son, especially because he was old enough, was, buddy, you can do anything, right? Like never ever settle for whatever in life while I went into my office and settled, right? So it was for me letting my Matty A talks about it, your audio matching your video, right? My audio wasn't matching my video with my son. So I completely get that. On homeschooling real quick, when did that start and why?
We started actually early on. The reason, as soon as as soon as we knew we were expecting, I knew, like, right away, that I did not want my child to be in daycare. So, like, right away, we made the decision that, all right, my wife is gonna stay, and she was on board, and she wanted it. So she wanted to be a stay home mom, and it was great. She was a teacher for years, and so that's essentially, from day one, we knew we didn't want our kids to be in daycare. So that kind of made it easier to take the next step, because when we start looking at schools, we found out that most of the schools are the same, whether it's public or private, didn't really make any difference. The only difference were the parents. If the parents is paying a lot of money, that means they're probably higher chance to be educated. And if they're paying a lot of money, there's probably higher chance that they're gonna hold their kid accountable. But it's not like a big chance. It's like a smaller, you know what I mean? It's an average. And so what we found is that there's not much of a difference, and the curriculum, and the kid was always going to be held back by the lowest denominator within the class. So whoever is, like, the teacher's going to be teaching to the slowest kid, and so when they're at home, they're going to their own pace. There's certain things that they're going to be fast at, and there's certain things that they can be slow at. But when they're not going to be held back, and they're going to be able to go with their own rhythm, and eventually we discovered that their rhythm is a lot faster than the average. So they'll be able to my daughter is probably going to be able to finish her high school by 12 or 13. My son is probably, like, a little bit later, but each one has their own pace, and they don't have to skip things. They can slow down when they need to slow down. They can speed up when they need to speed up.
I agree. How do you solve the question? A lot of people are interested in homeschooling. How do you, or how have you seen, maybe it's not less of an issue than people realize, the social aspect affected for your kids?
That's a great question. I spent quite a bit of time thinking about it, especially because we moved, and essentially my kids kind of lost their next door neighbor, and we got lucky because the next door neighbors also moved, and so we're at that built-in excuse. But I was thinking about it for a while, and I said, instead of this being a weakness, let's make it a strength. And then what do we want? And I sat with them and we started talking about this, and I said, okay, what is the problem? The problem is we want friends. We lost our friends. Great. So what is a friend? It's a group, it's a network of people. And what do we, if we have to design it, reverse engineer it, what do we want? Do we want good kids or bad kids? Do we want smart kids or dumb kids? Do we want fast kids or slow kids? Do we want, fun kids or or boring kids? So we literally designed the ideal friend profile. And then we said, okay, well, where these kids hang out? Where they hang out at the gym, they hang out at the playground, whatever. Great. Now, if we go, we want to figure out how to qualify them, and then we want to figure out how to connect with them. Great. So I'm talking to my 7 year old, kid, and it's like, okay, when you meet this kid, what do you say? Well, let's script it. Let's role play it. Hi, my name is Jack. What's your name? I'm 7. How old are you? I love to play this. What do you like to play? And then so we give him like 7, 8 questions to start the conversation with a random kid. And then now we qualify them or identify he's cool. Now what do we do? Well, he probably doesn't have a phone. He probably doesn't have any email. Let's go to his mom. And then what is the offer? Oh, hi, my name is Jack. I just met Joey over here. I want to invite him to a pizza party in my house. I have some toys and this. We live in this neighborhood. Would you like him to come? Of course. I mean, like great. What is a good phone number and email to send him an invite? And so my kids, both of them did that, and they had like a goal, they had a quota of making 2 friends a week. And they reached their, like, the first 3 weeks, they got 6, 7 friends. And what happened is that they created this cluster of friends. They didn't have to do it for that long. They created a cluster, and all of a sudden we have like 10 kids hanging out in front of our neighborhood. So all the neighborhood kids want to hang out in front of my house. So all of a sudden, every day we have 25, 30 kids hanging out in front of our house, coming to my kitchen, drinking water and soda and whatever. And all of a sudden now they're empowered. Now okay, we can get dropped anywhere and build a network very quickly. It doesn't really require that much.
That is really, really well thought out. And yeah, my kids aren't homeschooled, but they go to in the States, they go to an Acton Academy, and there's 7 kids in their school or something like that. So it's not a big, it's like a one-room schoolhouse essentially. So I can't
Yeah.
speak to like no social interaction during the day, the school day, because they have some. But even beyond that, club sports, soccer, karate, there's a little baseball thing that they like. The library, like you said, it's just a little bit more effort, but there's a lot of kids that do a lot of different things, and they make friends, and they're kids. Kids are really good at meeting each other, you know?
And the beauty of this is that it empowers them to choose the friend, because like in you go to school, you're friend with the kid that sits
The
next to you
click.
just
Right,
randomly.
right. That's a great point. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, the kid he's not trained, or he's not like given tools to go across the room and interact with the kid on the other side and ask him questions to find out that that kid is much cooler than this kid, or that kid is much more a match with me than this. And it takes them maybe 2, 3 years for being in the same school to find each other.
Yeah, look, I think you're making me think of Gobundance, to be honest with you, a little bit. Like, we
Yes.
target Gobundance to be a member of because of what shared values there are. Imagine if Gobundance didn't have a minimum requirement, or if it was open to men and women, or if it was, you know what I mean, just like random, like whomever can just jump in. I mean, anybody listening, you, me, anybody would say, well, that loses something then. But yet, in public school, with our most precious commodity, our children, it's kind of what we do. We toss them in and say, yeah, go figure it out. I never thought of it that way, but that's a great point.
Yeah, and then like my kids now know, like when they see a kid that doesn't fit their values, like let's say a kid that hanging out on the phone too much or plays video games too much or whatever. Oh, that's not our thing. You know what I mean? Or that kid says bad words. That's not our kid. Or that, you know what I mean? And so they already kind of like created this, standard in their head of what, and they don't, and they are empowered where they don't have to follow the group to belong, because that's another part. When they're disempowered, when they don't have the power to choose their friends or build their tribe, they just have to follow whatever they. So it's a survival mechanism with human beings. They have to belong to some group,
Mhm.
and then if they don't feel the power that I can go over there and build my own group, they're gonna just follow some kid that's doing something just to go along, to stay along, if you will. And I did not want them to have that. If they, I want them to think for themselves, and if they're gonna do something, they choose to do it, not to follow someone else.
It's a great point. That's a great point. A really good outline. I like what you've created an empowerment structure for your kids to meet people, as opposed to, like we said, just throw them in the jungle and make them survive. So what's up, everybody? Thanks for taking a minute here to listen to what I have to tell you about Gobundance membership. If you've been listening to this podcast and listening to me for any length of time, you know that Gobundance is the one catalyst to me changing my life drastically at the age of 40 plus. So for many of us out there, men and women, we struggle day to day being lone wolves in our own community, trying to figure out how do we get unstuck. I can tell you so many conversations I had with people where they couldn't resonate with me and I couldn't resonate with them. And the moment I joined Gobundance, and I've made a lot of money as a member of Gobundance, but the return that I can't calculate is the ability to show up as my authentic self and celebrate my ambitions and my achievements, but also be vulnerable and clear about my losses and my screw ups. Joining Gobundance has given me the ability to have all of that, to have the foundation on which I can build the kind of life I want to. It's how I quit my job. It's how I moved to the Dominican Republic. It's how I have the adventures I do right now. It's how I got this podcast. It's how I founded Gobundance Emerge. It's how I partner with Quantum Capital. All of it is thanks to my investment in me and finding this community of entrepreneurial people that are driven to be the best versions of themselves. As we call it, the tribe for healthy, wealthy, generous people who choose to live epic lives. If you're listening and haven't become a member, you're sitting on the sidelines and watching life pass you by when you have the chance to invest in yourself, in your community, in your tribe, and drive your life to the next level before, God, I'm 44. I mean, it went so fast. I've got so much I want to do, but time is compressing on me. This has shortened my time horizon to where I'm trying to get to, and it can for you as well. Check out Gobundance.com, fill out an application. If you want to go directly to the Gobundance Women's side, if you're $1 million+ in net worth and a female, go to GobundanceWomen.com. And if you're at that $0 to $2 million mark for a man or $0 to $1 million mark for a woman, check out GobundanceEmerge.com. Sign up and hang out with me. I run that community like it's my life. I would love to have you a part of that, and we have given an amazing opportunity at $500 a month or $5,000 for the year to be part of a community that gets immense value from Gobundance members on a weekly basis through our millionaire case studies and everything else. Join one of these Gobundance communities, the one that's right for you. Get in the room that lets you look up at the next level so that you can achieve what you're trying to in this lifetime. Gobundance.com, GobundanceWomen.com, GobundanceEmerge.com. Check us out. All right, let's dive into these Gobundance member questions. So we're going to start with 2 questions on the pillars. So the pillars, as a reminder, are horizontal income, age-defying health, bucket list adventure, genuine contribution, extreme accountability, and authentic relationships. Got them all. First question is, in which Gobundance pillar are you crushing it, Jay Bourgana?
I would say the passive, but I would say in a little different way, because I think of like financial freedom. When we think about passive income is financial freedom, I think of it in multi dimensions. It's not just financial, but I also want to have bandwidth freedom. I also want to have geographic freedom. I always want to have, you know what I mean? So I want to have like all angles of freedom. I want to have time freedom, geography freedom, thinking bandwidth freedom, all that. So I think I've it's in my DNA. My parents divorced twice, and I had massive uncertainty as I was a child, and I was pretty much homeless my whole childhood. So I spent quite a bit of time in my childhood thinking about how to gain control of my financial situation. And so I have like a little bit of an advantage in a way because I adapted. But I think the horizontal one is the one that I'm where we structured our life where we can drop ship any place in the world and be okay.
Is there I know there's no like 3 steps to this, but is there any, I don't know, a quote that you would give a a first step? Is there a secret or something? Because a lot of people struggle with this. A lot of people struggle with horizontal income. And like you said, just like freedom, like time freedom, location freedom, all of that, financial freedom. I don't know. Is there a core value or a core statement or a core thought that you have that would be helpful to somebody listening who's saying, I want to get down that path, but I seem to keep getting derailed?
Yeah, I would say the quote that I mentioned earlier, that talent is equally distributed, opportunity is not. I would say move where, like, you don't have to stay in the same spot. If you feel stuck in this place, there are other opportunities somewhere else. And as long as you keep your expenses low and you keep your, you don't gather up a lot of junk, and you don't, I think like the moving a lot thing actually is very helpful, because it gets you thinking about, oh man, I accumulate all this shit, I need to get rid of. So, and you think about it, even from a mindset perspective, from a health perspective, all the habits that you pick up, all the thoughts that you pick up, all the people that you pick up. Listen, you have an opportunity to cleanse, to clean up, to leave behind, and move forward. And so people just feel trapped sometimes with this imaginary things around, I have to hold on to all this stuff in my storage, or I have to hold on to all these people that don't serve me, or I have to hold on to all these ideas or all these things, and you don't. Or I have to, like, oh, I went to school for this thing, and now I have like invested all this time, and then I have to stay in this thing that I've invested all this. No, you don't have to. You can move on. It's okay. You've learned in that phase of life. You can completely transform. You can shed your skin. You can 100% delete and then start over.
That's a great point. I like that. All right. In which GoBundance pillar could you use more support or accountability?
I'd say, health. I do quite a bit in terms of, but I'm not the consistent type. So consistency in my health habits.
Which one specifically? Like, when you say health habits, is that exercise, food, all of it? Like, what's your vice?
Yeah, well, it's all linked together. It's a kind of domino. If you have like if you drink too many margaritas on Sunday evening, you're not gonna sleep well. You're not gonna eat well, and the next day, the whole week is messed up. So I think being consistent, and I'm kind of like one of those kind of little bit of a yo-yo type person, where I go from super disciplined to completely undisciplined.
What triggers like? Have you ever analyzed that? Like, when do you de-trigger, if that's a word? But like, when do you trigger over to the dark side? Like, what creates that?
I don't know. I travel actually a lot. So I love to travel, and I love to kind of change. So whenever I travel and I go into social environments, I find it very hard not to have a drink or two, and not to participate in the festivities and the feasting celebrations. So that's the
It's hard, but when I had my corporate gig, I traveled 45 weeks a year, right? Get on a plane 45 weeks a year, wife and kid at home. So I was gone more than I was home. And I did this and it worked for me for a while. I literally flipped it. It was like, I love cake, love cake. I like having a nice old fashioned, or I'm a big Malibu guy. You can judge me if you want, but I love Malibu. It's good stuff. Um, but I would flip it because it was so easy when I was traveling. I was, work friends, other people, bumping into people at a restaurant, whatever. It's like, have a drink, have a steak, have this, have that. Like, it was, but I flipped it. So it was like, you know what? When I'm away, I'm going to be clean. And when I get home, if I want, I'll indulge. And I found that I was less inclined to indulge. I still would. I'd honor myself, like, have a drink Saturday night with my wife or whatever. But I don't know that way. But it was hard because you're in a different spot. You want to try the food. You want to, kind of be a part of it. But I don't know. Just throwing that out there. That helps.
I think food is like a social thing, and so that's how we connect. We break bread, and then if you come into an environment where we're celebrating this connection or celebrating this relationship, or we're opening up, and you're the person that says, "Oh yeah, I'm not," you can drink, it's okay, I'm not gonna drink, or you can have that big steak, I'm just gonna get a salad, and it's gonna you're gonna look different. You're not open. You're not, what I mean. You're not part of us. And that's one of the things when I was in China. That's one of the things that made me very successful there. And I was able to build deep connection with Chinese vendors and Chinese customers and the politicians. The mayor of Qingdao was a friend, and the reason why I was able to go and eat anything that put in front of me, and be there, and be curious and be open, and be available to go out and do stuff. And that made them trust me, and made them want to help me, and made them connect to me more than even local Chinese vendors or clients, or you know what I mean. So there's something to food. There's something to that, and yeah. So I'm still, I have my good days and I have my bad
We all
days.
do. We all do. Where in your life are you potentially flirting with disaster?
I don't know if it's that bad, but I have some, a couple commercial assets that are going to come to be refinanced in 2-3 years. So we don't know where the situation is going to be like in 2-3 years in terms of rates. But that's kind of a concern. So I'm keeping an eye out, and I'm hoping that things will stabilize. Inflation will come down next year, and we'll start seeing the rates come down a bit. But so yeah, that's the one thing. If I had to refinance today, I'll be like shitting bricks for sure.
When you underwrote the back end, was it nowhere near what, like, even now, like, like, I'm sure you were conservative, but are you in an environment where
Yes,
you're like, well, shit, I didn't expect rates to be where they are now. Like, I gave myself a little buffer, but not
correct.
this much buffer.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, I didn't think that they will. So I thought even if they go up a little bit, the equity portion will cover, because I would have paid down some of the equity, and then the cash flow will stay the same. Even if the rates go up, cash flow will stay the same. Maybe I won't take any cash out. Maybe I won't be able to do, but at least the payment will be the same. Cash will be the same. But now the way things are, the equity and the cash flow will be eaten out if we have to refinance today. So it will be still okay. It will be on the edge. On the edge, maybe some of the banks are not going to want to do those loans. Maybe, I mean, I'll have to probably struggle to get, even my bank to refinance
You'd be
that
below
same
the
loan,
coverage
or
ratio. No, you probably wouldn't hit the coverage ratio.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And some banks have overexposed themselves a little
yeah,
bit more.
true.
So their regional Federal Reserves are putting pressure on them not to renew loans. So even though you have good loan that's been paying with them, they may say, "Hey, we really want to do this loan, but we can't," and I have to go somewhere else as a new customer and then negotiate new terms, which is not fun.
Yeah, I think what the signal seems to be another half point maybe on rates through the end of the year, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we'll sustain for a bit. I mean, who knows? But 3 years feels pretty safe that they're going to at least tick down a little bit. I think.
Yes.
What did
Yes. I'm
Yeah,
hoping.
me too. What have you learned, and what do you do differently, if anything, now when you're analyzing? Is it just like, wow, I'm way more conservative in my estimation? Are you targeting a different loan to value? Like, what are you doing differently, if at all, anything?
Right now I'm just on pause. I switched essentially away from real estate. No, what I learned, that if we come into an environment like we did before, I would have bought more assets. So let me start. I would have done more, because that zero interest environment cannot be taken for granted. So I would say, that's what I learned. Don't take that environment for granted, and buy as much assets as you can, as low of a rate as you can. And then two, buying at a good price at an entry point is the most important thing, because it gives you a margin of safety. And all the assets that I bought, where maybe I prospected direct to the seller, and I was able to get a 70, 60, 80, no, I'm sorry, 20 to 30% discount of market. Those were my best assets, because I had that buffer, and I was able to get my cash out, and I still got the cash flow, which is great. So buying correctly, taking advantage of zero interest, that's for sure. Moving forward, I'm essentially switching a little bit from doing buying real estate to buying businesses. So I'm going back to what I love to do, which is making businesses better. Here's the thing that I learned, because I'm someone who's love to solve problems. I thought of myself as, the bigger the problem, the more fun I'm going to have. So I almost like created this attraction in my world to bigger problems. And I had to like pause myself, and I said, no, I can have the same fun without seeking problems. Let me go find good things and make them better, or great things and make them exceptional. Let's not let's not go try to make something really bad into good. So now, instead of like going for like a deep value add, I'm going for an A and make it an A plus business, or taking a good business and making it an exceptional one. I think it's much better at my age right now, having kids. I would rather play that game than the one that I used to play when I was younger.
It's interesting. You talk about like you're bringing in energy, and I've just reading this book now. It's called "You Love Money, Money Loves You." Have you ever heard of that?
No,
Sarah
but I like the title.
right? Sarah McClum,
I
and
like the title.
she writes it. She's written a bunch of books, but she writes it like as money. In other words, she is like she's speaking on behalf of money and teaching the listener like how they work. I know it sounds crazy, but it's really interesting. And it's very, I mean, some people might see it as woo, but then she gives examples that are like, holy crap. Yeah, that's exactly what's happened. And what you just said is one of them. It's like people need to be intentional with what they want from money. Like, what do you need? She doesn't even say want, like, what is it that your demand is or whatever. And money will fulfill it, or, you will find that. You'll find the way there. But when people say, I need money to pay my bills, or I need money for this, then you're creating need, right? Essentially, the argument, again, very spiritual or whatever, is when you say I need $1,000 to pay for this thing, well, then we're going to create, meaning money, we're going to create the need. You're saying you have a need. So we're going to create the need to then give you the money. And the example she gives is like, do you ever get some money and then like the furnace goes? And that's happened to me. I can't tell you how many times, like, oh, I finally got a chunk of this is my past, right? Finally got a chunk of money, and then the AC went, or the furnace went, or the roof goes, or some big expense that just took what I was planning on and just washed it away. So I don't know. When you said that, like you're inviting in big, like this idea that I have to bring on level 10 problems to solve because that's fun for me. It's like, no, problem solving is fun. I could do that by taking from the 99 to the 100% as opposed to taking it from 0 to 100. Right. So
I agree. I agree. So essentially, you're trying to avoid um, creating a hole to fill. You're saying I want to fill a hole, and it's like, no, we don't need holes. We can just build a castle.
that's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a fascinating book. I
yeah,
forget who turned me on to it, but it
yeah. I
was
love
really
it.
good. So, all right. In what specific way, I was lost the question, has GoBundance impacted your life?
In a lot of different ways. Obviously, the conversation around the one sheet and having some KPIs to measure your progress in life is so valuable. That exercise is valuable. When you do it with guys that have been in the game for a while and haven't played the right game the right way, you're inspired and you start thinking to yourself, hey, man, I'm playing small. Let me go bigger. So they inspire you. Being around people that it's just, our tribe is so diverse. Even the elders are different. Each one is different. I remember this conversation with Tim Rode. So David Osborne and Pat Hyben and Tim. They're all different. And I found myself having conversations with Tim. Tim was the guy who actually got me into GoBundance. We met at Hal Elrod's first event in San Diego, the Miracle Morning event, and and I was talking to him. And I heard this story about like how he measures his life and how many number of days he skis, and how he just want to be passive and he want to like allocate capital to passive investments and let operators do their thing and just go and ski and hike and bike. And I'm like, man, that's what I want. And I'm like, why am I trying to follow the David Osborne model, which is like more work or more stress? Let me go Tim's way, because that was my goal. It's like, oh, David Osborne, that's the way, get to 150 million, get a jet, blah blah blah. And then I look at Tim over here and he's having all the fun. And I'm like, oh shit. Like Tim is the one that got it right. So having the access to different models for life and people that play different games. And I'm open to be wrong. I love being wrong because that means I'm improving. I discovered something. I'm evolving. So if I had like this, I always tell my wife I have strong opinions, but they're loosely held. You can prove me wrong. If you bring me evidence, you can prove me wrong. So when I was talking to Tim proved me I was playing the wrong game. And that's where it shifted for me, where I was like, oh shit, I need to go that route and go as passive as I can, maximize the enjoyment of life, maximize. I love connection, I love connecting with people, I love seeing the growth in others, my kids, employees, team members, clients, Gobundance members. So let me play that game. And so yeah, so it's a big shift. They're big shifts and they're small little things, but it all has been only
I
positive in
love
my
that
life.
point, man. And specific to those two, like I think you're right. People don't. David is a rare breed. He is a rare breed, man. Like I remember when I first launched Emerge, we did it as a course, right? And we did like a 30-person test run of it in like November of 2021, and then we launched it officially January of 2022, or maybe I'm 2020, whatever it was. And to launch it officially, I did a webinar with David, and we were selling the course for like $600, right? It wasn't anything big. Dude, that guy texted me at least 20 times, like over the next 2 days. How many sold? How many? Like, what does he give us? If I sold 100 of them, it's a dinner for him. You know what I mean? It didn't matter though. The dude is like, he's a rare breed. He's an empire builder. I think most of us see that because he's very well spoken about it. He shares his goals. He's got 86 goals. He's checking them off. He's go, go, go. And it's like, fuck, man, I gotta be more organized. And we should. He's in great shape. I mean, he's an absolute machine. But I think more of us are Tim or maybe Pat. Like Pat's a machine, but not on the David level, you know? So I don't know. That's a great point. Like you do get exposure to these different sorts of ways of being, and then you can kind of pick and choose. But
I remember when Pat was had like this like mini life crisis when he was looking for things to do, and he went and got one of those bikes and he was driving around people around Charleston.
yes,
You
that's
remember
right. I
that?
do. Yeah. He was like a
Yeah,
bike
it's
taxi.
like, and we had the conversation. It was like, oh, it's either that or be a
Yeah.
bartender. And I'm like, oh man, that's an interesting. And I lived that. I had that thing with myself. I was like, oh shit, I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
Let me go become a guide or like start teaching people how to surf. And I'm like, no, no, I need to get a bigger something like purpose. Like I'm still young. Let me find, like it's the thing is like you don't when you get into this freedom game, you become like in a total freedom, and then you don't want to attach yourself to something that's like a 9 to 5. But then like, oh, well, how do I create a world where I can do the parts that I love and not the parts that I don't like, and still be engaged and still feel purpose, and still have the freedom to go to opt in and opt out. So I think that's the fun game that we get to play.
That's cool. That's cool. All right, couple more to wrap up. What advice would you give to a
Yeah.
new or prospective GoBundance member?
I would say engage, meet as many people as you can. There's no one is stopping you from calling people and spending time with them on the phone or on Zoom, or even if it's 15, 20 minutes. The more connections you make within the tribe, the more value you get out of the group. I've spent, I think, like a couple of years ago, I started like setting up literally appointments with every person, and I would go on my walks every morning, and I'll have anything between 15, 20 minutes to an hour, 2 hour conversation, depends on how we connect. And it was so valuable to getting to know the tribe, and we have a growing tribe. It's a changing tribe. There's always some interesting people that come into the tribe. People leave, people come. So you have a great opportunity. The more you connect, the more you can get out of the community, and then come with an abundance mindset. Don't come like, that's another thing that I'm trying to push more within the group is when you come to these micro tribe meetings, or bring something. Don't just show up with a fork. Don't show up to the potluck with a fork. Bring something. Go do some research. Like we see like a lot of the micro tribes, it's a tribe. So they're there for multifamily, but they're only like two people that are talking the whole time. What Go spend some time, learn something, and then bring is like, hey, I just learned something. I just read this in the news. Blackstone did this, or you know what I mean? Just bring something to the table, and people just like sit there passively, and then you have to call on them, and then they'll tell you, well, I'm just starting, I'm just learning. I'm like, how? Just make some effort, bring something. Just go grab some bag of chips, or like as lazy as you can, and bring some salsa from the store, but bring something. Don't just show up with nothing.
I love that point. That's a great point. I've said it a million times. Like the first year I was in Gobundance, I almost didn't renew because I was feeling intimidated, and then therefore I was like, okay, I paid this money. What's going to happen? What do I get? And it all pivoted when I learned, like, actually, the way to get value here is be a contributing member. Because then once you are, people get to know you. Oh, he's a good guy. He means well. Da 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 da. All of a sudden, value started to return. Not like I wasn't looking for a transaction. Like, well, I gave you. What do you give me? But the natural order of the universe, or whatever, just the way people are. And and again, we target a community that contribution is one of our goal, one of our pillars. That's why we joined. I've gotten so much more by contributing than by trying to figure out, how am I making my whatever my tuition is, 7, 10, 12, whatever the hell the amount is now. So, all right, we're going to ask a question from the GoBundance card game. What is the largest gathering? Oh, this is the ace of spades. What is the largest gathering of human beings you have attended? It's a weird way of wording it, but
That's funny. I actually have I was part of like a world record of the largest gathering in the world with people wearing fruit costumes. So
where and when was this, and why?
it was I think it was like 2000, either 16 or 17 in Huntington Beach, and it's actually an article in LA Times. And me and my son are running. We're participating in some of these games, and we're both bananas. And my wife, I think, and my daughter were strawberries. And then I actually brought my team at the time, and then they're all different animals, and we have a video about it. So it was the largest gathering in the world of people wearing fruit costumes.
How many people? Do you have
It
a
was a
sense?
Guinness
Was
World
it like
Record.
thousands,
Uh, thousands, thousands,
thousands of fruits running around?
thousands. Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. Guinness World Record.
I love it. Jay, man, I appreciate you. This was fun. I had a great time getting to know you more and everything. I'll see you at another event, I'm sure, in the near future here. Is there anywhere you want to direct people? A website, a social media handle, anything where folks can connect with
Yeah,
you?
I'm everywhere on social. See, my last name is easy to find because there are not that many of them. So whether it is Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, I'm available.